Hi everyone, I'm Monica Jazik here with Real Property Investments, and today we have some of our amazing specialists on this webinar to really prepare people for how they are going to prepare for April 1st. I mean, April 1st is now 2 days away, and it's going to be a serious time. There's a lot of speculation of what is going to happen on this day. We're having a lot of problems with the COVID-19. A lot of landlords are crossing their fingers, wondering, am I going to be collecting rent? What do I do if I cannot collect rent? What do I do if I can't return to work? How am I going to cover my own expenses? And at Real Property Investments, we're committed to giving you all these answers. We're going to be providing a lot of information, and we even created a special playlist on our YouTube channel dedicated to topics around the COVID-19 to keep you current and really get professional topics that can apply to you. So today we have some of our amazing teammates on this call. We have Richard Bryson of PMB Property Management. We have our wonderful accountant, Michael Matthew. And we have our Barrie specialist, Colby Marshall, who's a very, very active investor in Barrie. And we're going to just hit some of these key issues and questions of how we can really prepare and what to expect on April 1st. So Richard, as probably one of the largest property managers in Barrie, and you're expanding all across Ontario, your Real Property Investments primary property management company. I mean, you have hundreds of doors that you're managing, and you must have many, many, many anxious landlords chomping at the bit here, asking what's going to happen April 1st.
Yes. Thank you, Monica. And yeah, you're right. The phone's ringing, the emails are coming in, texts are coming in. So what to expect? I personally, would, without being an alarmist, I would expect the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario, you know what? If the rents don't come in, or if a portion of the rents come in, we advise our landlords to top up their accounts. Just make sure that your mortgages, if you're not deferring, if you can't defer, that your bank accounts are topped up and your mortgages won't have an issue. Like, do we know if the governments will give us and our landlords relief as fair and as equitable as they're doing with our tenants? Probably not. So in a nutshell, that's what we direct and advise
us to do.
Yeah, just expect for the worst, because we don't know. Nobody really knows. Like we know from a sixplex in Barrie, two of the main anchor tenants reached out to us, told us, yep, they're applying for EI, they've been laid off, they're waiting for funds to come in, but they're reaching out to us and they're communicating.
Yeah, and I think communication's really key. Like, communicate with your tenants and see how they're doing. I don't think anyone should be, we do have a couple days, so I don't think anyone should be too nervous right now. But you did mention something interesting. You mentioned partial rent. So what is the best thing to do? Because I received yesterday a partial rent, and I wasn't sure what that meant, because that was a couple days early, and it's from a couple, and sometimes she sends half and he sends half. Yep. So I wasn't sure what to say, and it's not the first yet. So what do you do in the sense of something like partial rent?
We accept the rents without questioning, but we also communicate back to them if they haven't reached out to us previously. And we reach out to them and ask them, how is everything going? How are you holding up? How is work coming along? Are you laid off? Are you going to be applying for any financial assistance from the government?
Mm-hmm. So I heard also too, I don't know if Richard, you could speak to this. Some people that are having their tenants call in and they're asking for relief. Some of them are putting together forms basically to cut up their last month's rent deposit into 3 pieces. And then that would relieve rent for 3 months. A third of the last month's rent for the next 3 months would be used up from the last month's rent deposit. And then once this all kind of settles down, the rent would have to go up over and above what it currently is to basically put that last month's rent deposit back.
But how does that fit with the Ontario Landlord Act? Is that a legal thing to do? And is that a contractual obligation that they would have to uphold after the fact?
No, I won't. I wouldn't say it's a contractual agreement. I think it all depends on the individual landlords themselves if they want to work that out. I personally am not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather just see what's coming and just deal with it one case by case scenario. It could become a bookkeeping nightmare with over 400 doors for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you're hands on and you're taking care of the one tenant, it's your tenant, and you want to work out those you want to work that out with your tenant, go ahead.
Right,
think outside the box and take it from there.
You're right, and we really shouldn't jump the gun before April 1st. We have a lot of our members talking on our online members site and our private forums, really worried and wondering what's a sensitive approach to kind of take as well. And one member reached out and she wants to find out what's happening with her tenant. She was wondering, do we serve people at this time? Because
N4s and stuff.
like, what if you served an N4? And we should have John Kramer, our paralegal, on this as well. But if you served an N4 at this time and the courts aren't even taking any new cases and there's going to be a backlog, what would that even look like anyways?
Yeah, the 14 days will expire before anything happens, and then you can't apply. So you can, I would say you can definitely serve an N4 or even go with the L9. Now, the L9 is a softer N4. It says, I want my money, but I don't want to evict you. However, the LTB is already backlogged, and if we think about we're losing a month worth of tribunals and postponements, let's just stick to the program.
Mm-hmm. And it's not probably like we have to maintain relationships with our tenants as well. I think there's a lot of great tenants out there. There's other tenants who will take advantage of this whatsoever. But Michael, there are relief for these tenants, are there not? They can all apply for relief programs, can they not, starting April 1st?
Well, there are a number of programs that apply to individuals that could help in that situation. It's important to note, though, that things are changing so rapidly that you should always check for the latest information, and the easiest way to do that is to go to canada.ca and just search for COVID-19 Economic Response Plan. Economic Response Plan is the key phrase, and that should find the latest, because we did a webinar last week on the Thursday, and one of the things we talked about didn't exist until the day before. So that's how quickly things are changing. But
well, that's why we want to keep providing people with this updated information. And I'm talking, I don't care if it's a webinar every day. This thing is changing every single day, and the rules. And I remember last week on our webinar, you were discussing the Canada Emergency Response Benefit to support the people or the tenants who might have that can legitimately say, I'm not able to work. Can you tell us a bit more about that program?
Yeah, well, that was the program that was just announced, and it's, as it stands at the latest, it was designed to give people $2,000 a month. It's a flat benefit. It's not an up to in terms of the amount, and they're saying for up to 4 months. And what's unique about that benefit is there are numerous benefits such as work sharing and payroll support for employees. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit is the only one that also applies to self-employed people.
Like us.
Like many.
Like Colby, like Richard.
Like everyone on this call and many of the members.
Like yourself.
Certainly myself. It's the only one that applies to me in terms of the individual ones. And it also, though, applies to people who were laid off because of shortage of work. Parents who have to stay home to look after their children, etc.
Yeah, because if you're a tenant and you can't return to work and it's going to cause a problem, You could apply for this on April 1st. How fast
Early
are
April.
they expected to get their money?
They're not saying yet. They have said that there'll be a website to apply for this program through set up in early April. So I would take that to mean the first week or so. How quickly? It's government unfortunately does not move quickly. And the reason this was set up in the first place is initially they were looking to do things through the EI system, leaving aside that that wouldn't help out most self-employeds. The problem is the EI system is not set up for the volume of applications.
Mm-hmm.
They're backlogged now, and the numbers that I've heard indicate they expect at least 1,000% increase in applications to EI. So the whole point of this CERB, as the benefit is abbreviated to, is that it's going to go out quicker than you could get EI. My guess, if you get it by the end of April, that would be the government moving very quickly. I suspect it's going to be early May, but it depends. If they do things through direct deposit, things may move a little quicker.
So basically, this might just be a problem for landlords for April and then possibly the start of May, because the expectation is they will follow suit and pay for their expenses like rent when they have these funds. Colby and Richard, you're both situated in Barrie. You guys work together all the time. We have tons of investors investing there. What do you feel about $2,000 a month for your average tenant in Barrie? Usually we're doing multifamily and legal. Is this enough to suffice for them to actually pay their rent in full, or should we be preparing for a more partial payment?
Well, most of the rents in Barrie, you know, they're 1 bedrooms are 1,400, 2 bedrooms are 1,600, 3 bedrooms are 1,800. That $2,000 is going to be chewed up very quickly. And if people aren't working, that $2,000 isn't just for rent, it's going to be for food and essentials as well. And maybe some people use it for non-essential stuff as well. So it helps, but I don't see if I don't know if the money's going to go all to the right spots. As for our thought process, you know, if someone's got a whole family, a couple $100 for groceries for a month might be a little tight, right? And you got other payments as well, so it's supposed to help, but $2,000 for the rents that we're experiencing at this present time isn't going to go that far, I don't think.
So Richard, I guess once again, there's nothing we could really do as landlords. Like there's no system in place saying, okay, so now that you received this relief, you're still obligated to fund, like pay your rent or pay these things. They're just, no one's telling them how to spend the money. It's pretty much just given to them. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. But I think the majority of tenants, especially ours, are good.
Mm-hmm.
Are good tenants. And I think the direction they're in is in the right place. And I think that it's, you know, if you figure it might take 2-3 months to get back on the game plan. And even if you try to evict, you can't evict. And so try to work it out as a win-win situation, you know, between the tenants and the landlords is what our direction is.
Because even the best, like it's beyond good and bad. You could be a great tenant and not have the money, and it's not your fault. It's just not there. So Michael, can people take advantage of more than one government program? So for example, let's pretend I'm in Barrie. I'm renting one of Colby's $1,800 a month units. I go in for the relief, so I get $2,000 a month, but I work at Swiss Chalet. I'm a waitress. And they are shut down. So I need to get unemployment as well. Am I able to collect the unemployment as well as this emergency debt relief?
Yes, you are eligible to apply for both. So if you're otherwise eligible to apply for EI, then you can go ahead and do that. And you can also apply for this new emergency benefit.
And what else could people like that are in that situation apply for? Is it mainly those
Well,
things?
there's a number of of changes that can affect individuals both directly and indirectly. And I can just touch on a few of those right now.
Please.
First of all, for income taxes, the filing deadline has been extended from the traditional April 30th deadline until June 1st. So essentially a month of extension. If you happen to owe income taxes, they've also extended the interest-free payment period from April 30th until September the 1st, meaning if you owe income taxes and you pay them in full by September 1st, there will be no interest or penalties charged.
And I noticed that was true for HST for business owners as well.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. I just want to mention if you're self-employed or your spouse is self-employed, then your filing deadline hasn't changed. It stays at June 15th, but you do have the same extension for payment of September the 1st. It's
So
important.
what about the 75% of the salary that they're going to cover now? Do you know how that works for
No.
employees?
No, no one does.
No, okay.
I'm not sure even the government knows, because they did announce a 75% wage subsidy for qualifying businesses up to 3 months, and that would be backdated to March 15th. And then the next thing they say is more details will be shared before the end of the month. So that's
I've seen
tomorrow.
a lot of that.
So
We're going to do this, but we'll tell you after April 1st.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like people are asking about this $2,000 benefit. I said, well, I can't tell you anything about it other than check back in early April, because that's when they'll announce that you can apply. I suspect they'll be overwhelmed with applications, but I'll sort that out fairly quickly.
You know,
They have $10 billion is just able to go to these services, but we're not told how until April 1st.
I read something about portal set to open on April 6th.
Okay. Well, that fits the timeline they announced.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was April 1st.
No, it's not. Definitely not the 1st. It's sometime in the first week of April, and
Right.
Richard just gave you a specific date, but I would start checking, you know, if this is crucial for you every day after the 1st, because.
Right. Because there's a lot of gray areas, like, and a lot of speculation. We don't really know what to expect. So Richard, like, and Michael, we're both saying here, there's a lot of information, but we really don't know. We're kind of working in live real time here. So Colby, let's pretend, you know, you're a very, very active investor. We're not going to pretend that. Let's pretend that, you know, the 1st comes, or what, actually forget pretending. Let's not talk reality, because you have taken action.
Yeah.
What would you suggest for all the landlords out there, since considering we don't know if they're going to get relief? Let's look at our landlords out there who are most of our real property investment clients or investors. They are hardworking people. They have full-time jobs, but they're also building their wealth, and they have a couple investment properties that they're using for, you know, cash flow as well as long-term growth.
Yeah.
And they don't know, they can't go to work. They're not sure what's going to happen with their job. They have primary mortgages to hold, and they have mortgages on investment properties, and have no clue what their tenants are going to do with, you know, in regards to rent. And they're also have no clue, you know, what they should do in regards to serving tenants or doing whatever. So how have you, as you an active investor, have taken precaution for this?
Yeah, for sure. So I took the mindset as soon as everything started going downhill was, you know, plan for the worst, hope for the best. The mortgage deferral program was the first thing that the government kind of provided to us to basically help curb what was originally announced, that no tenants are going to be evicted for 6 months. Everyone said, well, what about us? So the government came out with the mortgage deferral program, which will defer your mortgages depending on the bank. Some of them are 60 days, some of them are 90, some of them are even 6 months. depending on how long you want or what you need. Also, what I've done is I've deferred. I used to have pre-authorized debits for my gas bills, my hydro bills, my taxes. They all came out of my account automatically. I froze all those, so that's not happening currently.
So you don't
Uh,
have to pay gas or hydro right
well,
now, or you just froze the
they
automatic?
they usually have 90 to 120 days before they go to collections, anyways.
Right.
So just to stack as much cash aside for the rainy day, the doomsday scenario, if this lasts for 6 months, 90% of tenants stop paying rent, you're still on the hook here. So you want to have as much cash on hand as possible for as long as possible, because we don't know how long it's going to take from a doomsday side scenario. We're not saying it could be 2 months, it could be 2 weeks, but it could be 6 months too. So basically my mindset is to keep as much as you can for as long as you can, because you don't know, some tenants might pay April, might pay May, but June, July, they can't do it. So
Yeah.
we don't know how long these programs are going to last for. Are the banks going to say, well, we gave you 90 days for deferrals, now the deferrals are gone? So, the trough's open right now, so I'm trying to get everything we can to weather this storm as well as possible. A lot of people are asking, well, what is a mortgage deferral? Is it going to hurt my credit rating? I'm fine. I don't need it. I have cash in the bank.
Hmm.
But again, cash in the bank, how long is that going to last for? Do you have enough to last you 6 months? If none of your tenants are paying you rent, plan for the worst, hope for the best. So I actually did sat down with the branch manager from one of my banks, and I said, well, what is this mortgage deferral? What does it look like? Lots of investors were asking me. So I had this little chart here I made to kind of go over what it would look like if you deferred a mortgage based on some of the numbers we have in the Barrie area. Let me get this set up here. So this basically right here, the average duplex in Barrie is 550,000. So if you have an 80% loan to value mortgage on a $550,000 duplex, your mortgage principal would be about 440,000. And if your mortgage is at a 3% rate at a 25-year amortization, the average rate is going to be $2,082 per month currently. So 6 months, if you were to defer your mortgage for 6 months, 6 months of interest would be about $6,024 that you would have to add to your principal. So this $6,000 would be added to your $440,000 over here. And this would be your new payment after 6 months of adding $6,000 of interest. So the only difference in your mortgage payment after 6 months of deferral would be $28 per month.
Hmm.
So if your mortgage payment is $2,000, you could potentially have, if all your tenants pay rent, $10,000 of cash in the bank, or $10,000 to subsidize the property if the tenants don't pay, or maybe other properties as well. And that's basically what we've been doing from a deferral standpoint. Because again, we're planning for the worst, hoping for the best. If it does go for 6 months, the further out we get, the longer people aren't working, the worse it's going to get. So I would get your hands on as much capital, as much cash as possible, as many programs as possible now, because April, May might be easy, but June, July, August, September, it's going to be a whole different ball of wax if it goes that long. So
Yeah, we have no idea how long this is going to last and where this is going. And it's very rare that we're actually offered help too. And so all too often, it's like with credit cards, when you don't need the money, the banks are offering you the lines of credit and they're offering you loans. And people reject it because they think it's the good thing to do. But
yeah,
when you do need it, no one is there to help you. And sometimes the best way that we can help our tenants as landlords is to help ourselves, because the less stressed out that we are about our personal situations, the more gracious we could be with these people who genuinely just do not have the funds. Now, hopefully everything goes smoothly. Hopefully the tenants have reserves, so they work half a month. They're able to cover this month, and they're able to tap into these government resources on, now I guess April 6th. I thought it was April 1st. And they're granted their money, and they're able to, pay at least a portion, if not whatever. In the interim, we are also protected because we're able to pay our own bills. I think this is a real issue with landlords, is that a lot of the time, and I've had conversations with people at social agencies about this, as well as people at Kayla Andrade of Ontario Landlord Watch events, in regards to the people who are so committed to ending homelessness. They have to remember how close us landlords are to being homeless as well. When we're just trying to elevate our life, we've invested our hard-earned money, we're putting our investments on the line as well here. And then when we're not receiving rent, you know, we're responsible to pay our debts too. So it's really great that we have relief as well. So Michael, I know you don't have much information on the business owners, but there's also talk in the town about how businesses or small businesses are now eligible for a loan of up to $40,000, and I think $10,000 of it will be forgivable. Do you have any more insights on that, and how people who have a real estate company might be able to use that and take advantage of that to help them during this difficult time as well?
Yeah, that is called the Canada Emergency Business Account. So there's a number of loan programs available depending on your situation. That one in particular is called the Canada Emergency Business Account. And as you said, it will provide interest-free loans of up to $40,000 to help cover operating costs. So this one is actually tied to payroll. So in order to qualify, and it actually applies to not-for-profits as well as small businesses, you have to have payroll in 2019 of between $50,000 and $1 million. So it will help certainly many companies, but not all.
So this would apply to you, Richard. You have a lot of staff.
Yeah, but we're working.
Aha, because you're not
Staff,
affected.
we're not affected. Sadly, but positively, we're not affected. We're affected more for our clients as a mental and emotional side, but not financial. It's business as usual, and we're all hands on deck.
So what if the government's put a hold on that, though, and all of a sudden declared you a not necessary business, and they really wanted total isolation measures to be implemented? You weren't able to help tenants get homes. You weren't able to do maintenance on homes. Everyone was really left for themselves. Are you ever worried about that happening?
I try not to think about it, but it is what it is. And I'm hoping that it's not going to change, and I can't see why, because the service industry for properties, I know I'm stretching my thoughts, but we hope that it's not going to affect us, because it'll affect the tenants and the landlords at the end of the day.
I would be very surprised, because you're getting into safety, sanitation type issues. If
right.
you allow tradespeople in to affect emergency repairs, I don't see that happening. It's just going to create many more problems.
Yeah, well, it's hard to accommodate everyone's needs, you know, the safety of the people and not like the transmission of the virus versus
right.
people living with like pressing needs. Like, what if they have a flood? What if they have a sewer back, which they can't be expected to fix that on their own? But at the same time, Richard and his team, you know, if it becomes, you know, that contagious or that much of a risk, you know, it is putting you and your team sort of on the front line as well. I mean, how are you doing with rent collection now? I know you're normally pretty up to scratch, and you are pretty selective with the tenants. There's not really the cash tenants anymore. Knock, knock. Give me a bag of quarters, pay your rent. It's more online and automated, right?
It is. Everything we almost everything we do is automated and online. I mean, we Saturday, 3 o'clock, received a call from a lower unit tenant, and we were talking about floods or even toilets backing up, and that was one of the calls we fielded. and we were able to get a plumber out there in a couple hours.
So the plumber, because a lot of the municipalities and stuff, they are looking at that as essential services. So the plumber, this would be deemed an essential service to go out there and help right now at this point. But whereas if someone's just like thinking of upgrading their plumbing, they probably wouldn't come out for something like that.
I think there's something about construction. And if you're updating, if you're renovating, I'm not sure if that falls into that line, but believe it or not, I've got guys working in rental units now that are vacant.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's their choice to work or not. We've got two gentlemen that said, no, I don't want to work because I'm not sure. I've got an elder at home, so I would rather not.
You have a lot of development projects on the go too. We do a lot of, conversions, duplex conversions, triplex, fiveplex. Has there been a stop order put to all these projects? And what could these investors expect April 1st or even now for the next few months about their projects that are mid-construction?
Yeah, so we've got about 5 sites currently on the go right now, all in different stages and different capacities. Anything from duplexes to 6-plex conversions at this particular point. And we've got about 4 custom homes we're doing as well. Permits, City Hall is shut down. They're working remotely, so permits are difficult to get. We've got one in that's been in pecking order 3 weeks now. 2 weeks of this was, everything was kind of going crazy. Things are starting to shut down, so we haven't heard back on that. Usually it's about a 2-week turnaround to hear something back from the city. So they're definitely slowing down on the permit side. Inspections from actual physical inspectors, they're becoming increasingly difficult. They won't allow anybody in the house. If there's anybody in the house, they won't show up. Some of the inspectors are allowing videos or pictures for our crew members. And that's only some of the inspectors. And again, we have a great rapport with them. We've probably created 60, 70 units in Barrie. So they know us, we know them on a first name basis. So, we're still chugging along pretty good there. The soft cost side of things, like your drawings and stuff, they're all working from home remotely. So that seems to be okay. But anything from an approval standpoint from a government agency like conservation authorities, lot severances, minor variances, all that is really slow. The minor variances aren't even going through at this particular point. We had 2 on the docket for March. They're deferred to April, and I'm going to assume it'll probably be deferred till May. Yeah, no, we have everybody working. Most of our job sites, we stockpiled a lot of our materials as well, because before Tuesday, when they deemed everything to be essential and non-essential, we were worried that the supply chains for your Home Depots, your Lowe's, your home hardwares wouldn't be allowed to be open. Mm-hmm. So we've stockpiled on most of our sites 90% of the material just before all that came out. So we're rocking and rolling pretty good. The Electrical Safety Association, they're still doing inspections. The biggest holdup we're seeing on our projects right now, other than the permits, is the disconnects. So when you are going to update your panel to 200 or 400 amp service, or adding 1, 2, or 3 meters to the property, you're required to do what's called a disconnect, which is ordered through Electra, which is the utility provider for Barrie. They're slow as molasses on a good day, and we've been waiting before this hit. Now we can't even get a hold of people. So yeah, that's the biggest hindrance we're finding now between the permits and electrical safety. Not electrical safety, but Electra themselves. The disconnects are the 2 biggest hiccups that we're having on that side. A lot of our engineers and planners for our larger projects, they're all working remotely, so they're still moving ahead. But like most people, they're probably at home with kids hanging off and trying to do the standard workload, which I know is tough. And some of them aren't doing site visits. I know our surveyor for our topographic surveys and site plans that we're working on, they have to go on other people's properties to get certain elevation shots, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're knocking on people's doors. They said we're not doing that right now, so that's kind of holding us up on a couple things as well. But we're trying to push through as much as we can with the professionals that are working from home at the capacity that they are at this particular point. So.
Because I mean, I love these projects. Like, this is where we're at. Like, yeah, Colby, let's do these huge renos and let's make some real money. And I know it takes 12 months. Now this 12 months might be like 18 months.
Yeah.
And because of your expertise, you can persevere and push through, but it might come to a standstill. So let's pretend I'm like an investor in one of these projects, and we do have some of our investors in these projects, and we currently are always looking for these investments, but it is like a lot of money up front that's standing still. And, you know, obviously this is more of a reason why the investors, if you have a mortgage, like with construction financing, talk to your lender and see if they'll just defer these costs, cause some relief, because we don't want these to go belly up. You could even negotiate with private lenders. I've heard about people doing that. We are having a webinar on April 7th with Susan Flanagan, who's actually going to be talking about private lending and how it can actually benefit people in these times. So private lenders can actually help. Now, Colby, I think you negotiated with a private lender. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've got one construction financing mortgage on a 5-plex that I've finished. They've deferred the mortgage for 2 months, but I'm just waiting for CMHC financing on that, which is insured through CMHC in the commercial space. So the longer it waits, those rates seem to get lower and lower, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. We also have a vendor take-back first position mortgage on a development property, and they deferred for 2 months as well, which is great. But again, it's subjective to how nice that person is, really.
How sympathetic is that person? Like, and don't be afraid, anyone who has a vendor take back holding a first mortgage. And if you need more questions like about VTBs, feel free to ask that online. But you know, people are people, and we want our people to be successful. Or anyone who's holding a vendor take back, you might want to consider offering this to your payee, because people have so many bills, they're not able to create the income normally, and they're dealing with issues that are stopping this income from coming in. Now, Michael, are there any government programs that we could take advantage of for people who are in the midst of these big real estate projects, and it kind of comes to a standstill and they're carrying a debt load of maybe up to $250,000 cash invested into this project, and these payments are kind of still coming in?
Well, there are some additional loan programs that are available through banks like the Business Development Bank of Canada, or the BDC, that will work with the private sector lenders. But all these programs, additional one for exporters, for example, it starts with your current lender. So the unfortunate part about that is they want you to phone them, because they don't want you to book a meeting at the bank for obvious reasons. But the lines are going to be overwhelmed, so it will take some time to get through. But there are potential loans available there, and as Colby pointed out, it's probably best to get on these sooner rather than later, because you just don't know, A, how long the COVID-19 crisis is going to last, and B, how long some of this money that you're counting on will take to be dispersed. So
I totally agree.
The more income streams you can access, or loan streams you can access, the better chance you'll have of being able to ride out this crisis with minimal disruption.
And with also for myself too, with the interest rates as low as they are right now, I'm trying to get my hands on as many different lines of credit, refinances, anything you can at this particular point, because these are the lowest interest rates we've seen in a long time. And there's probably going to be some opportunities coming up too. You know, if people aren't going to be able to keep up, as sad as that is. So, you know, if you can help somebody get an opportunity so they don't claim bankruptcy as well, you know, it's good having access to cheap money yourself to maybe buy an opportunity or save yourself on something else that might not be coming in as fast as possible, or what have you. So.
I totally agree. At Real Property Investments, we always say wealth building never stops. So even though we are in a crisis situation here, I'd like to thank everyone for jumping on today. We are so lucky to have such amazing team members like you. And at Real Property Investments, we have a full service team of professionals like Matthew, like Rich, like Colby, that service our clients all across Ontario. And we're going to be providing more information as much as possible to help you guys through this time. So if you're viewing this,
Monica,
this is on our YouTube channel, and it's the playlist that we designed just for the COVID-19 playlist. It's going to be subscribed to this channel. It's our Real Property Investments Wealth channel, and click on this playlist because we're going to have new information almost every day. So thank you guys for coming on, and please subscribe because we're going to have more information on a regular basis. Take care, everyone, and best of luck on April 1st.